into this journey, the internet was around, but it wasn't the scale of what it is now. We're now creating these global nation states that are digital, that operate outside of the US or the UK or Europe. And they need a system of, as we get more digital, each day our lives get more digital. Digital assets now have value. This digital infrastructure is much more efficient at moving stuff around and recording the ownership. So if we now go to this system where in the United States you buy a house and it gets stamped and go to a notary and then it get recorded in a registrar, this can be instantaneous, everywhere and nowhere, and always verifiable. So it's really the operating system for the digital age. And without it, it kind of doesn't function. It's all a bit clunky. But with this, it's instantaneous settlement, recorded ownership, and transfer of everything.
Yeah, see, I mean, this is where you got me with the bug 3.5 years ago. I looked at Bitcoin. I have to confess this to people, and I didn't understand it. And I thought, okay, wait a minute, this is
3 years ago, which was Ethereum. It's like, what is this smart contract business? So I want people to understand that everything humans do is basically a contract. All societies are organized by contracts. Me appearing with you was a contract over email. Even how societies work, how religions work, everything, they're contracts. Some are not that important. Like meeting a friend for a drink, you can say, hey, listen, I can't make it. Nobody's going to sue you for it. It might cost you more drinks next time, but that kind of thing. But others are really important. Insurance contracts, derivative contracts, contracts for ownership of property. All of this can now be digital, so you don't have to trust a third party. So we're away from the system of money. We're now talking about verified truth, electronically verifiable truth done by code. So that means we can then get rid of middlemen all over the place. And we've all spent too much money on lawyers. We've all thing is, what is the answer that the central banks chose, or the governments? It was create more money. So you've got this macro backdrop of debt and this fear. So that's driving adoption. And then people are finding new use cases like NFTs for smart contract stuff. That's creating a technology adoption like anything, like the internet was. And it happens to be the fastest adoption of any technology the world has ever seen, except AI, which has been faster. But we're also finding that the central banks are debasing currency. They're making our money less valuable. So we're looking for things that are a store of value over time. That's not necessarily against goods inflation. It's against the thing that governments and central banks always do. They clip the corners off the coins until you've got no coin left. That's a way of taxing you without you knowing. And that's to pay the debts that the government has because of the aging population and all the debts out there. So those two things are driving the movement of crypto. So the crypto price is based off those two issues. The adoption of the technology, creating mass wealth, not for Wall Street, but for retail, who got to front run all of this, and create a new system that solves the problem of what's the investment, what the central banks and governments are doing, and solves the problem of an over-indebted society. I mean, that's how big it is.
Yeah, and I just want to add a few things. You're saying them, but I'm going to be more blunt about it. The central banks and the politicians have been drunk driving with the money, and the result of which their reckless behavior is eroding the wealth of lower and middle class people, primarily people who are hourly workers. They get their money, it comes in, they have it, but it's worth 10% less in 2 years, and they've lost and eroded their purchasing power. Something like Bitcoin is stable, it's unfettered by the government. Okay, so this is a decentralized system. We don't have to trust anybody but the decentralized nature of the system. So the facts are, we don't trust any central authority because we're all working on it together to make it decentralized. So with that, tell us where we are. Are the rates coming down? Do we have more inflation ahead? Is there disinflation coming? So Raoul, where do you think the stock market is, et cetera?
So let's look at but our wages won't, which is the big problem. So our future selves are getting poorer because we can't afford as many assets. And we've got this massive wave of debts to be refinanced. So that's normally a very positive backdrop for crypto. Lots of liquidity, and liquidity is what drives all markets, but crypto is the supermassive black hole that sucks in so much capital when this happens.
I mean, it's a mouthful. I didn't get it in the beginning, Raoul, because I went to a classical economic training. You know, I'm going to date myself, mid 80s. We were talking about stagflation and the Fed and managing the debt. And when I left school, I think the U.S. government had under $1.5 trillion of debt at that time. We've hyper cycled this debt. And so let's just give everybody this understanding. From George Washington to George W. Bush, $7 trillion of debt, which we all thought was staggering. But we're now Barack Obama, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, they add 27 trillion, a result of which the money that you're earning is going to be worth less. And so it's a form of taxation, this debasement that you're describing. This inflation is an invisible form of taxation. And by the way, the mystery of why it works, Raoul, I believe is because the numbers go up. And so if I'm worth $500,000 and now all of a sudden as a result of inflation, my house is worth $750,000, I actually feel nominally richer, even though I could be poorer. And this is the great mystery of why it's working for people, because they don't really 100% understand it.
No, because you're dead right, is that people don't understand because it looks like their stock market, their 401k's gone up and all of this. But that's only a small percent. That's like 10% of the population who have assets. And those people are very happy with it. The more assets you own, the more powerful you are, the more assets you probably own, the less likely you are going to the next 2 years. How do you pay for that? And so therefore, I am very aggressively positioned in crypto because the only other secular trend there is, I can divide any asset like the S&P 500 or real estate or gold by the central bank balance sheet, the Fed balance sheet, i.e. how much money are the Fed printing or putting on their books. And most of them are pretty flatline. Then you look at the NASDAQ and it's going up because we're getting more digital every day, so there's endless demand. And then crypto goes up exponentially, as we know. So the fastest horse in the race is crypto. So I'm actually 100% of my liquid net worth in this. And I have been actually since 2020. And I use the bear markets to add into, because I think we're in a once in a lifetime wealth accumulation opportunity for everybody. Be you rich or poor, you can still put 10% of your savings in as you go. He made the NFTs. He hasn't made the I Hate Mooch NFTs yet, but I'm sure they're coming.
Well, yeah, I mean, I hope he makes those. I'll be buying those, actually. He'll make some money off of me if he makes the iMooch. But you know, Trump said in 2018 he absolutely hated Bitcoin. But I think Trump is more interesting than Biden in this way because he has no principles. He's like a spinning weather vane. He'll go with crypto. This could swing the election. So, Bob, I think the Democrats are making a terrible mistake. Raoul's being a little bit more polite than me. Let's go to the next question.
I agree with your point. Is if the Democrats screw this up, I don't think people are going to forget, and they will vote.
Yeah, no question. Okay, so this is for you, Raoul, because this is right up it's right up the fairway for you. Will there be a super cycle in this bull run? This is from Daniel from Florida.
How I think of it, I think there's a 60% chance that's just a normal crypto cycle. So Bitcoin finishes 150